out one of obviously the real challenges in this case is it comes to you without an ordinary trial record compiled and all the rest. So we have only limited amounts of information, but absolutely these other websites are taking much the same kind of information, if not more. And as to the contact list thing, I think that points out one other aspect of this. That is a voluntary decision by an American user to share that information. In the Riley
But
case,
not informed. And
well,
even if
that could be
informed,
solved. If you don't think it's informed, that could be solved by
no,
a
they
warrant
can't
or
be,
exposure.
because for the United States, the threat of using that information is what is at issue. It's not whether the user thinks it's okay. It's whether the U.S. believes that it could put sites at issue. But let me ask you one last question, and fundamental question. Assuming that content neutral data collection concerns were is one of Congress's provisions, divest because of this. Why can't we separate that out from how we analyze the algorithm question? And couldn't we sever the two provisions to say divestiture is right, but you can't force them not to discuss algorithm?
Well, I think the reason why you can't do that was Mr. Francisco explained. I thought I'd direct you to a case like Hunter against Underwood and just analogize it to this situation. If what you had is the government saying, we are shutting down TikTok or requiring divestiture for two reasons. One, because we think it helps the Democratic Party too much. And number two, because we're concerned about data. I think that first interest would be a poison pill. That would be an impermissible, or because we think there's too much pro-Catholic content on TikTok. I think there are some interests that are just so constitutionally verboten that I think that just makes the act unconstitutional, and you can't go looking for other interests. You send it back to Congress. Look, if you want to pass a data security law, free and clear of this impermissible interest, you go ahead and do it. So can I say one other thing, Justice Sotomayor, just because I think it is also telling here that even if you didn't buy that poison pill argument and you just asked whether Congress would have passed this law, something else that I think you might notice is even if all this act goes into effect and the law goes through, TikTok gets to keep all the data. So wouldn't the data security law require them to expunge that data or get rid of it or something? I mean, it's a very weird law if you're just looking at it through a data security lens, and maybe Congress could do better.
Mr. Fisher, often we require divestiture for antitrust reasons, for example. And as I take it, your argument here, and we don't think of those as normally implicating the First Amendment interests of users or people who might speak or associate with editors. And the difference here is, as I understand it in your mind, that this law is motivated by a content-based interest. Is that a fair summary?
I think that, and the only thing I would add to it is just the prior step, which it is regulating the speech itself for content-based reasons.
Yeah,
yes.
And we don't do that in the antitrust area, but
Exactly.
you say this law does. Okay.
Exactly.
And it does on the covert content manipulation side. Do you think that's a compelling interest or not? Forget about the tailoring for a moment.
No, my point is that preventing content manipulation, whether it's covert or not,
is simply not
impermissible if what you mean by content manipulation are the kinds of interests the government is saying, like undermining trust in our leaders, undermining trust in democracy. That's Whitney and Abrams, and like those cases.
I got it.
Yeah.
I got it.
So,
Just a couple more. I'm sorry. I'll finish up real quick. And so that would take us to the tailoring question. And there you say disclosure and alerting Americans that there is covert content manipulation possibility, putting aside the data collection part of it.
Yeah.
Telling Americans that there is covert content manipulation going on in TikTok, or at least it's possible. And the government says that's just simply not enough. And the DC Circuit did too, and I wanted to give you a chance to respond to that.
Right,
Exactly.
so I think that's the only aspect of the governmental interest that could be permissible, the covert part.
We run a
And
lot
my
of people's
answer, as you
lives.
just said,
A
is
lot of people's lives will be
dispose
ruined if
yourself
this
that
app goes
problem.
away.
And you have a law.
So that's the U.S.
long-standing
arguing their
law,
case
which we haven't
right now.
talked about yet today.
For those who are
that
doing the
gives
live
you
news,
that
the U.S. right
example.
now
Again,
is
under
arguing
history and
their
tradition
case.
test, you look at not just precedent, but laws and our traditions of our country.
TikTok already
Look at the
argued
Foreign
theirs, and
Agent
now it's the
Registration
U.S.
Act. passed in the run-up to World War II, and the concern was Americans would be controlled by foreign agents to speak and advocate certain causes.
We didn't ban them.
You did not ban them. All you did is Congress, all Congress did is require a disclosure.
I wasn't around for that. On the secret evidence point, I'm concerned about the government's attempt
Sorry, I'm
to
talking
lodge
so much. It's such
secret
an aggravating
evidence in
topic.
this
No,
case without
listen.
providing
And
any
encourage the
mechanism
discussion.
for
It is
opposing
aggravating.
counsel
It's going to affect a lot of people.
And I expressed that concern in Zebeda.
I think everyone is
And I know
aggravated.
that
Everyone on this
there are
app is
mechanisms
concerned
to
and just
reading
want to
counsel,
know
and that other
if they're going to be
countries,
banned or
including
not.
Our allies often do that. I just wanted to give you a chance.
So if you haven't started a YouTube channel, you
Yes,
might
Mr.
want to go over to
Roasted, we made all those
YouTube,
arguments
head
in
over
the
to YouTube
DC
and start a
circuit, so
channel
there was
over
a flurry of
there,
motion
post
practice
your
about
shorts,
whether or not
long
the
form
government
content.
could
You might want to do
rely
that.
on
Nobody's done
classified
it yet.
evidence. Those motions were never resolved, but the DC Circuit did. I think you probably
I'm
noticed
streaming
the
live
decision
here
to say
and
we're
on
gonna
YouTube
decide
right
this
now
case
because I already
solely
had a
based on
YouTube
the public
channel.
record. And my understanding is that's how it comes to this court.
It's
But if the
interesting.
court were
I have
ever
Instagram and
Interesting that
Facebook as
Congress
well,
hasn't
but I don't
acted
really
in this
use
field.
Facebook
I
like
mean,
that.
we
I just
have
post.
in the FISA area,
Instagram
lots of
sometimes.
They have regulated this area, and it does seem like an area that Congress might want to
There's just nothing
pay
like
attention
TikTok.
to, given the increased appeals to secret evidence that the government has made. in
TikTok
recent
give you
years.
more of a family environment. You can
Last
really
question for you.
build
Could the new
community
administration,
on this
after
app. This is
January
the app where you
20th,
get all those different
Mr.
conversations.
Francisco
Instagram don't talk
suggested
about
that it
anything,
might
like
be able
nothing.
to
You're not gonna learn
extend
nothing
the deadline,
about what's going on in the
even though
world on Instagram.
If you were to lose here by
Instagram is more about
January 10th,
aesthetics.
Is that possible?
Aesthetics, learning how to
I'm not
grow
sure
on
it is. I'm not
Instagram,
sure.
Amazon
Maybe that's a
hacks,
question
stuff
for
like
the
that.
Solicitor General, but
Oh, it certainly is. I thought maybe I'd give you a chance too.
So, as I understand the law, it's 270 days unless extended, and once that time runs, I'm not sure you're talking about an extension anymore.
Okay.
There's ex post facto law
Yeah.
that kind of does this
Got it.
stuff.
Thank you.
Can I take you back, Mr. Fisher? Let's say I agree with you that if you're talking about content manipulation, that's an inherently content-based rationale for acting. So if Congress had passed a law that says we hate the content manipulation that TikTok is doing, that's strict scrutiny land, and I don't know that the government can do that, however important and that the interest. But that's not what Congress is doing here, and this is the same kinds of questions that I asked Mr. Francisco. Because if let's take it as a given that Congress actually can do whatever it wants with respect to a wholly foreign corporation or a foreign government. And so Congress could act with the intent to interfere with the content manipulation that a foreign corporation is doing. And so now we're in this strange world where we're saying they can't act with respect to TikTok. They could act with respect to ByteDance. Why isn't this Congress acting with respect to ByteDance in the sense that all it's doing is saying ByteDance has to divest, and then TikTok can go about its business, use whatever algorithm it wants, use whatever content moderation policies it wants, just like everybody else does, choosing from everything that's available on the open market?
So let me answer that question in two parts from the perspective of the creator Americans who want to use this platform to speak to other Americans. So the first thing is what the act does, as you said, Justice Kagan, is prevent us from working with a application that is owned by ByteDance that uses this algorithm. Well, that's exactly what we want to do. That's our editor and publisher of choice that we think best disseminates our speech.
Yeah, but what I'm saying to you is if you just assume a world without TikTok, that where it's only ByteDance,
Yeah.
and you were trying to say, well, we really want to work with ByteDance, and Congress was saying, we think ByteDance presents national security interests, and they don't have First Amendment rights, they're just a foreign corporation. I think that in that case, the government, tell me if you think this is wrong. It just doesn't matter that you have creators who want to work with ByteDance, because ByteDance is a foreign corporation with no First Amendment rights. Is that what you're contesting?
So that is what I'm contesting. So you said two things, though, so I could be clear. There's two aspects. Do we have a First Amendment right to work with a foreign company or even a foreign country to publish our speech? And then there's a national security part that you put into that, which goes to the justification.
Forget that.
Forget that, yes, let's do that. So if that is right, Justice Kagan, then American creators have no right to make documentaries with the BBC. They can't work with Al Jazeera if Congress wants to prevent that. Any number of other publications that are state-owned wholly or partially. And even under Lamont, remember, where you're not even creating speech, you're just listening. That was speech from China. that the court said you have a First Amendment right to
So would I be
receive.
right to say that your position is that because of the users who want to associate and want to partner with this foreign corporation, the foreign corporation ends up having, in your view, the exact same First Amendment rights as your users do? In other words, it's irrelevant that the foreign corporation doesn't have First Amendment rights.
I don't think it's irrelevant because you could imagine a situation where no American distributor or speaker wants to work with that. But let me put it to you this way. The Communist Manifesto written by Karl Marx has no First Amendment standing on its own in America. But if a bookstore wants to sell that publication, I don't think Congress can prevent it from doing so.
Well, sorry.
No, I'm fine.
No. I'm good. Okay. So I want to press you a little bit on the distinction because in Lamont, the prohibition worked directly on the American. Like you have to specifically request this information that comes. This is working kind of as Justice Kagan's questions were pressing you. This is working on ByteDance. It's not saying to your creators, you can't post on ByteDance. That's indirectly going to happen if ByteDance chooses itself not to permit TikTok to walk away with the code. So does that matter, that distinction between Lamont and this case?
No, for two reasons. One, under the Sorrell case, you look to not just the law itself, but its practical operation. And the practical operation is prevent us from working with ByteDance. So that's one answer. And you
Okay,
bring
so
up
this is
Lamont, and
TikTok
Lamont's
lawyers
actually a very
arguing.
important case. I'm sure you all recognize here. It's important to look not just at the court's opinion, but look at the briefing in that case. The government itself never came in and argued there's no right to receive this information. That's the sort of greater argument. All the government argued was, of course Americans have a right to receive this, but it's just not so much of a burden to require them to raise their hand to get it. So Archibald Cox, when he was the Solicitor General, said to the court quite explicitly in the brief, we're not even going to make this argument because we think it's so contrary to history and tradition. All we're going to argue is the burden isn't enough. Now what happened is the D.C. Circuit kind of turned that upside down and said, oh, Lamont's just a case about the burden. Well, that's because that's the only argument the government was even willing to make in this court. There was no argument that Americans didn't have the right to hear that speech.
What about, so I think this goes to Justice Gorsuch's questions about antitrust divestiture. Let's say that for antitrust reasons, or let's even say not for that. Let's say for suspect First Amendment reasons, Congress tells Jeff Bezos that he has to divest in the Washington Post. You know, he can no longer own the Post. And let's say that neither Bezos nor the Post challenges that. But let's say that you represent clients who really like the Post as it was, who really want to keep receiving the Post, who really want to publish op-eds in the Post.
Yeah.
Would you have standing? Like, what kind of a claim would you be making there?
I believe so, Justice Barrett, and the court has cited Lamont in other cases in more recent years to say we've recognized the right of American listeners to receive information from others. And remember, even that is that's only a small part of the argument I'm making on behalf of the creators. You know, I don't mean to diminish Mr. Francisco's arguments on behalf of the company and ByteDance, but the core speech in front of you in this case are the videos and other forms of communication that people like my clients are posting by the millions every day on this platform to share with other Americans.
Can you win is it possible for you to win and Mr. Francisco to lose, or you guys are fall together?
No, I think it's possible. I mean, I don't think we should. But
Well, is it possible for you to win and him to lose? And
well,
you want to
let me
win?
put it this way. If you were to conclude that something about the corporate ownership structure, and I think there was some conversation about this earlier, impeded Mr. Francisco from being able to assert full-throated First Amendment rights in this case, I would step in and say, well, certainly we can do that and get you to the strict scrutiny. And then the arguments pretty much line up. Then you're in a question of, can the government satisfy strict scrutiny? And I think, Mr. Chief Justice, you asked about, do we have cases for this and that? I think that the idea is, yes, we have cases that say, once you're in strict scrutiny, that regulating the content because you don't think it's going to be pro-American enough or it's going to be too pro-foreign interest is just verboten under the First Amendment. That's the history and tradition. And Justice Kavanaugh, when you asked about the broadcast cases, they're grounded not just in scarcity, but they're grounded in scarcity in a particular way. It has to do with the absolute need Congress has for licensing in a world of scarce resources. And so that's the very small carve-out that even in Turner, the court wouldn't extend to cable television, that it exists for broadcast licensing. And if you look on the 200 plus years of our country for any other example of foreign ownership of media being regulated by Congress, let alone
Share
being
live,
permitted
guys.
in
This is
case
the
law,
live
you are not
TikTok
going to find
or
it.
arguments
And I
in
think
the
reason
Supreme
why
Court
is
happening
because
right now. This
everybody
is
has
the
understood
live
that
recording.
if you're not in a world
There
of
is no
scarcity,
video. There's no cameras. This is just a live recording.
licensing is impossible. You cannot give
No,
the
we're listening to
government,
right now
and in
just to
this-
try
in
to
this
see what's
more
going to happen with
extreme
this app.
example, the president
We're listening to
himself
see if this
unbridled
app is going to
discretion
actually
choose
be
who is a proper owner of a
gone
speech platform
on the
in this country.
19th. And if it
Because
is
it so
upheld, they
hand in
said that
hand
the
with
app will
you.
just go dark.
As I said earlier,
That's it.
any number of owners
It'll
of
go
big
dark.
media
You won't be able
enterprises,
to
whether they
see
be
it in the
Americans
App Store
or foreign
anymore.
citizens, could be
It will
accused
not
of having a particular
update. It'll
viewpoint.
just
But
be
speakers
gone.
who engage in those platforms have choices they can make. And so, on behalf of our creator clients, we
So if
find
you
it,
know other people who are interested
we
in
find
hearing
it
the
not
oral
at all
arguments and
satisfactory to be
just
told,
keeping up with
"Well,
what's
just
going on
go
with
post
TikTok,
somewhere else."
share the
It's not
live,
enough to tell
make
a
sure you
writer,
guys
"Well,
throw some
can't
comments
publish an
down.
op-ed in the Wall Street Journal because you can publish it in the New York
I'm
Times
listening simply
instead."
because I'm
Just
interested
like
in
here
knowing
to
what's
say,
going to
You
happen.
can publish it on Instagram
With
or
TikTok
some other
being that
platform.
a lot of us has
Not
grown,
just
are
TikTok.
growing on this
TikTok
app,
has a just
and we're all kind of like interested in what's going to happen. Right now, the reception is becoming a little shaky with the oral arguments. Let's hopefully it come back up. Let me see if I can pause and start again. Okay, so it kind of paused on me, but right now who you heard speaking just now was TikTok lawyers were speaking, really trying to fight for their rights, their First Amendment, the people on the app itself that uses it. And I think all these Supreme Court justices, they keep going back to, well, it's not about TikTok, it's about ByteDance. ByteDance need to divest. And ByteDance is not looking to divest from TikTok. And so I think that's the main thing. But it's a lot. I don't really know what's gonna happen. I don't know we truly don't know what's going to happen. We can
There's a great demand for what TikTok provides,
one is
and
any of
if
the declarations.
it's a very lucrative market.
There are two reasons, Justice Alito.
Okay, the reception keeps going in and out for this the audio portion of the live of the arguments, but I think eventually, what was the point of them pushing Lemon 8? Will there be a loophole with it? I don't know, because it's owned by ByteDance. I believe Lemon 8, if TikTok goes, I believe Lemon 8 will go as well eventually, because it's owned by ByteDance. And that's the whole argument here, is that they want it to be removed from ByteDance. They want ByteDance to divest from TikTok, and we already know that it's not going to happen.
An old article.
But the live stream from those news stations is a little bit shaky. But I'm pretty sure we'll know the determination very soon, because they seem to be moving very quickly with kind of like giving us an answer in terms of, is it going to stay? Is it going to be banned? It's 9 days. We have 9 days left to see if this app is going to be banned. And they haven't made
no matter
no
they
changes.
put their minds to it, they couldn't.
They haven't made no changes, no update. They haven't said, oh, we paused the ban. The ban is still going into effect on January 19th. I think CapCut. You think CapCut is going to go away too? CapCut is owned by a Chinese adversary? They can't get rid of CapCut. What is going on? Is CapCut all by TikTok?
Genius that is on a particular floor cannot be.
Is it? I didn't know it was owned by TikTok. I didn't know that. That is new to me. Wow, that's new to me. What is that? Is that Gifting? Gifting Mommy? That's new to me. I didn't know TikTok. I didn't know CapCut was owned by ByteDance. I'm trying to get it back, you guys. It seems like the streaming is just like, there's so many of us streaming.